I don't think I have a legitimate review in me for NBA 2K21. A review of the magnitude that I did for the old 2Ks on PS4. That wasn't the plan here anyways, but just letting you know this is going to be kind of ragtag. It's really just some thoughts that I have wrapping up my, this is like my 13th or 14th 2K, I've lost count. It's just some loose leaf thoughts that have been kind of floating around as we gear up for 2K22 this week. Some things I think went right, and a lot of the things that I think went wrong as we entered this new generation of consoles, or as like 20% of us have entered the new generation. And if we're going to thrive off of negativity and start there, it's actually a good place. The fact that so few of us really did enter this next generation. I don't have the numbers, but I have the experience. And so this is the first time that I ever experienced 2K this way, where I actually had to somewhat care about what was happening on the last console. If you're not familiar, what normally happens in a new console cycle is that the last version of 2K is totally neglected from the time that that new console releases. Because, well, why would they bother putting so much effort into an old game when the goal is to get everyone as quickly as possible moved to the new one? So in the last cycle, what you would see is some type of improvements to the PS4 version, and the PS3 was basically neglected. You would get the same game. After NBA 2K13, I don't think the game ever changed again. The gameplay, they would fix things here and there, but the actual game itself, it was a copy and paste of assets. You can hardly tell the difference between one and another for like the next 5 years. Already, that's different for NBA 2K21, and it seems like it is going to be different going into 2K22. It's not necessarily their fault, of course, with Corona and this mass scalper event that's been going on with the next gen consoles. It's very hard for people to get them. Therefore, there is a lot of you that were playing the PS4 version as your primary version. And it's going to be that way into 2K22 to the point that it sounds like they're adding real evolving things into the old version, i.e. the 2K cruise ship. That's just something I've heard. With the game coming out in a couple of days, I haven't actually seen the cruise ship, but it is something that we heard like a month ago, and it sounds every bit as cool, if not cooler, than what next gen will have for their park or our park. Anyways, that's the 2K22. For 2K21, that heavily manifested itself in certain modes that a lot of us like to play. For instance, the Rec Center. Me and my guys, we all were able to get the PS5, but it kind of felt useless playing after a while because to solve the issue of there not being enough players, 2K would simply say, hey, here's some AI teammates. AI teammates are bricks, they're duds. They're a little bit better than they were on current gen, but they're not a viable option. So if your team has AIs and the other team doesn't, people simply leave the AI open, they double team you, and the game basically ends there. Whereas as recently as a week ago, I played the PlayStation 4 version, and the only way you get AI teammates is if somebody quits. You can't control that, but at least you can find solid 5-on-5 games to begin with, and that's just not the case on PlayStation 5. That's one of the areas where you most heavily see the effects of a split generation, and it really does worry me going into NBA 2K22, because again, last generations, they did not have to focus on 2 games. We're not really satisfied with the effort that they put into one game every year, so the fact that in 2K22 they're now having to make 2 games and really having to focus on 2 games, I just don't see how that can go well. I was honestly prepared to not be disappointed by the jump in graphics from PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5, but I was prepared to not be wowed in the same way that I was from the 3 to the 4. We've never stopped raving about NBA 2K14's graphics because that is one of the biggest graphical jumps for any game ever. However, coming into the PlayStation 5, it was just difficult to imagine ever getting a jump like that again. It's not just 2K, it's kind of where technology is. The graphics that we've become accustomed to, because the PS4 had some very nice looking games. It was just hard to imagine that being absolutely blown out of the water. Now, that's not to say that the PS5 version doesn't look good. I like what they did graphically. Some of the cyber faces are spot on because they've been hiring modders, so they've gotten better at that over the years. But the jump wasn't the wow that you kind of look forward to or that you've grown up being accustomed to between consoles. There's still some times where I'll see a YouTube thumbnail or a picture on Twitter between 2Ks, and for at least a split second I get confused. I wonder, is this the PS4 or the PS5 version? There's some shots that can get you that way, and that just wasn't the case 7 or 8 years ago. Now we're at the point where the joy of a graphical jump is completely gone. When you take a look at the 2K22, the limited 2K22 gameplay that we've seen, aside from a couple of cyber faces that you can blatantly tell are different, the actual game itself, it pretty much looks exactly like NBA 2K21. I know that the joke in the past has been to say, oh, it's the same game every year, it always looks the same, and that's just not true. On the PS3s and the PS4s, anybody who's not being cynical should be able to take a screenshot of, say, 2K11 and tell the difference between that and 2K13. Those games did not look the same if you played them. Now, graphics have just been pushed so far, the only differences you can really tell are in the mannerisms of the players. The cyber faces, once again, like I said, if you look at Dirk Nowitzki last year and this year, there's clearly been an improvement there. Same with Luka. So a couple players, but that is one area, and this is just talking about 2K21 and maybe beyond, it's an area they have to get better at, because that just comes off as a lack of effort. There's a lot of things that 2K does that are great, and there's a reason that they're here today and NBA Live is not. They hammer out a crazy amount of details that we take for granted. This year, they've gotten every PA announcer from every team. They even got them to, as far as I've heard, record different players' names. So if a guy, say, is traded to the Sacramento Kings, now the PA announcer has his name. He'll say it as if he's part of the home team. Simply put, there is a ton of detail in 2K games that's worth praising. That's not their issue. Well, not until it comes to cyber faces. And it isn't just the historical players. There's maybe some justification for a guy that retired in 1994 not looking exactly how he looked. But when you have LeBron James or Kobe Bryant who retired in 2016, when you can't get those to the T but modders can, it's hard to find excuses. How do we have Steph Curry using the same exact cyberface the entire year after he changes his style 2 or 3 times, and then have that same exact one pasted into NBA 2K22? It just doesn't make sense. They make millions off of VC, they make millions off of game sales alone. After playing on PC so long, you can't A, convince me that they can't have a dedicated team to this to have players be accurately reflected as they are throughout the season, and B, at least have every important player in the game look as accurate as possible. When this game first dropped, Tyrese Halliburton's scan was shameful, and he told me he'd been out there to be scanned. How in the world did they have this in the opening product? We don't need to spend forever on cyber faces and details though, because what people really care about at its core is gameplay. At the crux of it, that determines whether we've put the game down by like April or June. That determines what the Twitch viewership looks like. It's crazy. As much as 2K sells, if you pay attention to the Twitch views, if certain people aren't streaming, those numbers are in the toilet. They have been for NBA 2K21. So NBA 2K21 on the next gen felt slow. It felt heavy, and extremely unresponsive. Maybe depending on the mode you play in. If you were in the Rec, I think that's a lot faster paced. Rec and Pro-Am is way faster paced than, say, My Team or Play Now Online. And in those modes, it just felt very difficult to do the things that you wanted to do. If you saw something you wanted to take advantage of, it felt like it took forever for the game to register what you were trying to do. Trying to move to a certain spot, trying to get a certain pass off, even trying to shoot. I can't tell you the number of times that I tried to shoot the ball and my player simply did not shoot the ball. I would find him in the corner, I tried to let it fly, and it just didn't register. In my opinion, that made playing NBA 2K21 by yourself a miserable experience. It's why you didn't see me go into so many different modes throughout the year. It's why at a certain point I just stopped playing Play Now Online, amongst other things. We'll probably talk about that in the features. But the extremely heavy feel this game had made it boring to play, it made it boring to watch. And so once my crew stopped playing the game, once we stopped playing 5v5 on the Rec or Pro-Am, I really wasn't into playing it anymore. Which is just kind of where 2K is at these days, and maybe it's been that way for a couple of years. If you can find a good set of people to play with, you can generally overlook some of the issues that the game has. Maybe you don't like the missed layups, maybe you don't like that at times it feels impossible to play good defense. Whatever it is you don't like about it, if you got a good set of people, if you got chemistry with them, generally you can have fun going against other squads. It makes for some hilarious moments, and it's basketball. Basketball is dynamic. That's one of the reasons we buy these games every year. People say, why are you buying 2K if you don't like it? Why are you complaining about it? Well, A, it's the only basketball game that's out. And on the flip side, at its core, I can go turn on another game, and there's definitely games better than 2K. But I can go turn on other games that aren't, they're missing that wild card factor that 2K brings. Every single game of basketball is going to be different. It's like that in real life, it's like that virtually. Something new is always going to happen. That's what keeps us playing this every year. That's the excitement and thrill of it. So if you got friends to make that happen with, you can get some good hours out of these games. I got some good hours out of both versions this year. If you were talking about some of the features, that's where things get interesting. The PlayStation 4 versions gave us 2K Beach, which I actually liked. I liked the setting, it reminded me of PlayStation Home. Everything was relatively compact, it did not feel like you were going on a road trip to get from point A to point B. I liked 2K Beach. The city, however, was obviously much better in concept than in action. we ran into the very obvious problem we all knew we were going to run into, which was running. Going around the city trying to get from a store to one of the courts, and we knew that was going to be a pain. From the time the trailer dropped, there was a lot of excitement, but we all went to the same thing. How are we going to be traversing this thing? So I'm expecting to see that improved upon in 2K22 the same way they improved upon the neighborhood when we kind of had the same issue as it dropped in 2K18. Probably get some fast travel, better placement of locations, and maybe something to make it feel less dead, because even when we first got this game, it wasn't like, oh, everyone was there and then everyone wasn't. The amount of people that the city holds and how big it is always makes it feel like you're just kind of walking around a wasteland, really. You'll walk and skate by many empty courts. They built very nice areas for use, there just isn't enough people to use them. And because everything is spread out so far, it just kind of feels like, oh hey, look at all these gimmicks that nobody's using, when in reality, there are a lot of people there, you just can't find them. Well, you can, once you go to one of your affiliated courts. So they brought that back, everyone wanted affiliations, they got us affiliations. I'm not sure the city mayor thing really mattered after the first couple of weeks, I'm not even aware if that was a full year thing or not. But there were cool ideas, the warehouse challenges, I liked those, there were good ideas implemented into the city. I want to see how they improve upon it in NBA 2K22, but once again, with most of you not being able to have your hands on a next-gen console, they are actually putting some effort into the PS4 version. That cruise ship sounds fun. A lot of people don't have a great perception of the city. I'm kind of wondering, once again, is the community going to be split? We're going to be operating on 2 builds. I wonder how that's going to affect the overall perception of the game, because I don't think it was great for NBA 2K21. I went back to the beach a couple of weeks ago. I went to the rec center. I was just a little bit nostalgic, I missed it, but also I missed the faster gameplay. Again, next gen, heavy, slow, unresponsive. I've never in all my years playing 2K felt the need to go back and play the older version. It just hasn't happened. Not for online purposes anyways. Of course, with 17 and 16, I played 16 offline, but the online features I've never wanted to go back before. Bringing me to my last thought on NBA 2K21. Yes, I am the last remaining somewhat known member of the 2K community that actually cares about playing out online. It's because I can't understand how simple 5v5 basketball, just you get your controller, I get mine, and we use some teams. I can't understand how that's not fun for people to play. Well, I can. That mode depends almost exclusively on the gameplay. If the gameplay is bad, you do not want to play now online. So I did not get that far this year because I hate the structure that they've been using since NBA, what is this, 2K16 or 17 now? I think playing online has been garbage ever since. They made it worse in 19, that was the big cutoff line. That was where they implemented this tier system, locking teams. It's been hell ever since, it really has. You combine that with gameplay that puts you to sleep, and I can truly understand why nobody would have ever touched this mode this year. I did try to make it entertaining though. Aside from gameplay, the cure for playing out online is extremely simple. Take away the tier system, let us see who we're playing against so we can choose a favorable matchup. Stop letting us run into the same teams that we've picked. Do you hear the emptiness in my voice as I'm going over this? It's because I was actually just watching my old NBA 2K reviews, and I've said this probably a million times. I said it for every 2K. It's never gonna happen. Playing out online is dead. I'm just stuck in the past at this point. Those are my thoughts on NBA 2K21. I'm done playing it. I doubt, unless I just get the wild urge to stream it one more night before 2K22, I don't think I'm ever gonna play it again. The things that are happening with the consoles right now, it's made for a very fascinating development cycle. I've heard some chatter out there that they've already got the day 1 patch ready to go because, well, I think we can all tell from the release of news with 2K22 that the development cycle's probably been tough with the pandemic and having to care about 2 consoles. This might very well have been their worst development cycle. So I'm not crazy optimistic about what 2K22 is going to look like, especially on day 1, but I'll be there. I will be there. Basketball is dynamic. I enjoy competing until I've lost my mind, so I'm at least gonna capitalize on that day 1 energy. But after that, I don't know. It's becoming easier to see my life without 2K being such a big part of it as it has for so many years. Once again, no clue. I'm not gonna destroy 2K22 before we've even got the copies in our hands, but with these last few years leading up to this, where the next generation really wasn't as great, whether it was really their fault or not, it is getting easier to see a world where I play 2K sometimes, but I'm not quite giving it the same energy that I have in the past. We'll see. We can always hope for a good year, right? Let me know what you thought about NBA 2K21. Which version did you play? Were you on the PS4, or were you one of the 20 of us that got to experience it on PS5? What are your thoughts on 2K22 and the jump it might take from 21? Leave that all in the comment section below, and hit the like button and sub if you enjoyed, while also hitting the bell next to my name if you want a notification every time a new video drops. Appreciate you all watching, and I'll see you on the next one.